Hey, I'm Dr. Elad Granot. I'm an entrepreneur, investor, and dean of Cleveland's Business School, the prestigious Boler College of Business at John Carroll University. This show is designed for those who think differently. We talk candidly about innovations in technology, in startups, venture capital, the global economy, higher education, how to lead, how to fail. We will leave no stone unturned. Expect passionate and sometimes controversial conversations with guests from all over the business spectrum once every month, wherever you stream your podcast. Today's episode covers a new business in Cleveland started by a Boler MBA alum, Molly Cheraso, and the business is Verbena Free Spirited. We'll talk about how Boler's MBA prepared Molly for a bright business future. We'll talk candidly with her about the business, Verbena Free Spirited, and this is Bottom Line with the Business Dean. So today's guest is Molly, owner of Verbena Free Spirited, and usually, not always, but usually I start the podcast by some sort of what the team here likes to call a hot take. I told you I don't know how hot it's going to be, but it's something that's relevant or at least recent for me, and I think might be sort of a good kickoff for today's conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. So yesterday we hosted Boler hosted a big data meetup, and it was over 80 people, and all industries that you would expect in Cleveland, healthcare. Financial services, cybersecurity, that type of stuff. It's a big data meetup. And so I was pleased to host it as a dean of Boler because we're putting in a lot of emphasis on tech proficiency and preparing our business grads, both undergrad and MBAs and grad students, for a business career with the understanding that technology is really something that is integrated into business. You can't really separate it. And so how can we have a business school without teaching technology, in fact, demanding it, in the sense that our undergrads get a liberal arts core, and so we are now saying they should get what we call a tech core. So of course we're hosting, or to me it seems quite natural that we'll be hosting such a big data meetup, a prestigious group of people. But there was something that was impossible to ignore as I was surveying the room, and that is there were over 50 people, only 2 were women. Mm-hmm. And that can't continue. And so I was talking with my colleagues this morning at the university at the President's Strategic Leadership Team meeting, and I told them the same story. And I said, look, there's first of all, something's off. We know, all of us know, but we need to work to correct it. We need to look at why this is happening. What can we do to interfere in this trajectory and allow for opportunities for women to be in tech-related, STEM-related business disciplines, data being one of them that's relevant. And so it's even more accentuated because the majority of students in higher education are women. Mm-hmm. So it actually is worse, right? There's a growing population, and which is already a majority of female students in higher education, and yet we're producing, especially in STEM fields and in business technology, a small fraction of that. And so the question, I know you're not necessarily a tech person, but you have your MBA, you have your own business, you have a background in accounting. We'll get to all that. What do you think about that?
I can't say I'm actually that surprised, having come up through a very corporate career in accounting and finance and banking, like you mentioned, and even my experience going through the MBA program is that typically as a female, we're in the minority. But I've also been in situations where even if there is a kind of a majority of women coming in as the input into a higher education environment or even in the workforce, I think it's just honestly the systems that have been built and which is broader than the corporate world. And there's a lot of different reasons that women's careers may be stalled or they may not be seen as the right person to take on a tech position or to take on a leadership position. So I think it's a really big question. I think there's a lot of different reasons. For myself and in my experience, that was a reason I stayed in my corporate position for so long, because I felt like I was a woman who had been privileged enough to have the skills and abilities to continue to grow into a leadership position. And I felt like kind of that Sheryl Sandberg, I've got to lean in, I've got to keep doing this, even if deep down I don't feel like that's probably the right path for me. And kind of, spiritually it was not the place I felt like I was bringing the most value into the world. And I'm sure we'll get into that. That's a lot of the big reason that I made a very large life change.
Yeah. And so I wasn't surprised either. In fact, I would have been surprised if it had been, 50-50 or that type of thing. I would have been pleasantly surprised, but I wasn't surprised at all. It just got me thinking, right? Yeah. Like, what should we be doing? And I think some of the things that I started thinking about is, when we have speakers, when we have events. Now at Boler, we have, female business person club. We have a female entrepreneurs group. We have a focus, but I think we need to broaden it, deepen it. And so I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm putting together an advisory group for a new venture capital fund that we're launching for our finance students. And I'm looking at the list that some of my faculty and I have come up with. And again, it's like mostly, men. And it's like, okay, we really need to be a lot more deliberate. And so that's something that has gotten me going. It's one thing to sit here and talk about it, but when you sit in a room full of people and you go, wait a second, what's going on here? Wow, and so that is my hot take thing. Thank you for indulging.
Well, I mean, I guess the last thing I would say on that is I think it's important to look at the leadership of that club or any organization, and where there are women there in the first few layers down in an organization, they will bring women along with them. And as a female, I will feel much, or even a minority, you're going to feel a lot safer if you're seeing yourself reflected back in the leadership. Yeah. So I would just ask, that would be kind of my first question, is what does the leadership look like? And are there females or minorities there? Because that's what's going to bring in those people.
And you're right. And I think, I've been trying throughout my entire career to be very deliberate about that. And when you look at Boler now, when you look at our department chairs, we have three department chairs. Just sort of had a change of the guard in the department chair ranks, and so now we have 2 women, 1 man. One of the 3 is also a minority, and that reflects, right? Yeah. And so now all of them exceptionally talented, dedicated people to Boler and to our students and to our mission. But it was very deliberate of all of us to bring them to the forefront. And I think at the end of the day, it's about access, expectations, and support. And these are things that I'm very deliberate about. And so obviously I have some more work to do. And so thank you for that.
I think, just acknowledging it and being conscious of it is just even that you observed it, I think that's the right first step.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see if I can take the next step. We're here to discuss the 2 things, really, the intersection of 2 things. One is to congratulate you and hear more about your business and about how you came to be the founder of Verbena Free Spirited, what it is, where it is, what got you there. But I'm also curious, obviously, as the dean of the Boler College of Business and as a big believer in the strength of the MBA degree, to know how that intersected with that move that you made. And so, I just want to thank you for being here before we get going. So maybe you can give me a little background and go far as back as you want.
Sure.
About your what got you here, personally, professionally, whatever you care to share.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm sort of a recovering overachiever. I went to college not really knowing what I wanted to do. I ended up in the business school at Miami University, and they have a great accounting program, and I liked that. So I did that. I fell into Big Four accounting. I did that for about 4 years. I got my CPA, and then I ended up at KeyBank, where I was for the last 13 years of my career,
Okay.
starting in internal audit. And part of the reason I moved to KeyBank was because they were really supportive of me getting my MBA. And that was something I definitely wanted to do. I've always had a drive and passion in wanting to start my own business and had this entrepreneurial spirit, but I was a little, one, I had, fears and about leaving a very comfortable corporate job and what that would look like. And I just never felt like I had the right idea at the right time. So the John Carroll MBA was hugely helpful for me, especially in developing my leadership skills.
Okay.
So the classes and the time where we spent a lot of time doing really a lot of self-analysis and self-reflection, and then taking that out into my actual job, this observation. Dr. Scott Allen literally had us observing ourselves and sending him, I think it was 5 observations by email every day.
Yeah.
It really helps you to kind of get out of your own head and start to see the bigger picture. And so for me, the MBA was so much about practicing that leadership. And it was during the MBA and while I was doing all of this self-reflection and figuring out what are my true strengths. We did a strengths-based analysis that was hugely helpful. What are my personal strengths and how can I bring them to work? Really helped me to just hone in on the fact that I'm passionate about leadership, and that was what I felt like I was able to bring. And so doing the MBA allowed me to vocalize that more at work, and I was able to say, I'm an individual contributor. I think I should be a manager. And just even expressing that to both myself and then the leadership at work, I think within 6 months I was promoted to a manager. So it really got me there really quickly.
So I want to break it up for a second.
Sure.
Let's talk about graduating from Farmer and going into Big Four. And then you were in public accounting for 4 years?
Correct.
Tell me about that experience.
So I was in external audit. I was on a banking client that was headquartered out in Bowling Green. They no longer exist.
Because of you?
Because of Huntington. They got acquired. There's a lot of, a lot of acquisitions in banking.
Oh, yeah.
It was interesting. I learned a ton. I got to really see, the thing I liked about external audit was you got to go in as this outside observer into a company, and you had to meet so many different people that worked there, and you really got into the guts of the company really quickly.
Yeah.
So that to me was so interesting. I'm a very curious person. I just wanted to learn everything I could about it. But the thing I didn't like about it, and the reason I ended up leaving and going to Key, was that I felt like I was investing into our clients, but that was like a one-way street. And I wanted to be working at a company where that was a two-way street. So going to Key, again, they were supportive of my MBA. That was now it was a two-way street. I was investing in Key, and I felt like they were investing back in me.
That's interesting. So I'm a marketing guy, so it's always hard for me to say that accounting, I think, is a fundamental skill in business. No matter what you want to do, if you have a strength, and I always bring it down to the simplified. Can you read a financial statement, right? And if you can't, I really think that you are carrying a hindrance as a manager, an executive, junior, middle, and senior, because you just don't have the fundamentals to the level where you can be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And so I always recommend when undergrads talk to me or even MBAs who don't have an accounting background, dig into that, right? Like you say, it allows you to understand the company from within, from its guts. And at the end of the day, this is a bottom line enterprise that we're working with, even if it's a nonprofit. It's a bottom line enterprise, and if we don't understand how things contribute to the bottom line, or if we don't have a full understanding of it, as talented and as motivated as we may be, it's just we're doing a disservice to the business. So I always talk about that. But then the second thing you mentioned, I never thought about it, this one-way, two-way thing. When you provide a service as a auditor and public accounting, it's a one-way kind of thing, and it might work for many, but obviously it didn't for you, and so. And then you bring up the HR element of working somewhere, right? I mean, Key treated you in a way that is beyond a contributor, right? And so tell me a little bit about it. So did the MBA thing come up immediately as you started working there? What did they initiate it? Did you initiate it? How did that work?
It was definitely a big driver of why I wanted to leave public accounting, because I just simply wouldn't have the time and ability going through busy seasons there to do a master's program. I think I started it within 2 years of, started at Key in 2009. I think I started the MBA program in 2010 or 2011. And my manager at the time had gone through Boler, and he at that point explained it to me as the MBA program being this integrated program where you weren't just taking an accounting class, you were taking an accounting class with a marketing professor, and they were bringing that in and bringing in this real world company, and you're doing a project with them. And I loved that, all of that, where I felt like it was less like undergrad where I'm learning content, taking a test, and it was much more integrated and realistic to what I had been seeing in the corporate world. So he really sold me on it. And I also, I sell people on John Carroll. I think for me, I knew I wanted to stay in Cleveland or at least regionally. And I think the John Carroll name is so strong in this, in our region. And quite frankly, the price tag on John Carroll and the reputation that it has was what beat it out for other schools that I could have considered in Cleveland. So
well, thanks. That's good to hear.
It's a good bang for your buck.
We're still trying to sort of carry out that formula, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, later on. So you're at Key, you're happy, you're getting your MBA, you love it, and then the idea of entrepreneurship sort of percolates. How does that work?
Yeah, I think my coworkers thought it was funny. I was at one point I was interested in maybe I could do an ice cream business, or I still have an idea around heated driveways that I think would be really great.
Okay.
But I didn't have any experience, or nothing was kind of like sparking that passion of like, okay, this is the right time. You should go out and do that. I was there through Beth Mooney's leadership, going back to women in leadership. So I was very comfortable at Key for a long time. I became a mother while I was there. And, the first few years of that were just all consuming. I have twins. So it was just kind of survival of the early years of being a parent. And then really what changed everything for me was the pandemic. I loved going into the office and seeing my team, and I was leading a large team at that point. And, the pandemic, then all of a sudden I was working from home all the time, and I was still seeing people on Zoom and talking to people constantly all day, but I really missed the face-to-face interaction. So it was during the pandemic that I started to meet with a career counselor and just think about, is this really how I want to be spending my time? Can I do this for another 20, 25 years until I retire? And the answer I was getting back was just no. And I do want to start my own business. But I was sort of looking around at what that could be. And the story of then how I came up with my business. Yes. So that's sort of a separate story, but it also starts in the pandemic. So I'm sure like many people, 2020, both my husband and I went from being in an office every day to now being at home. We would mark the end of each day with a cocktail or a drink, because it was sort of this ritual marker of, okay, the workday's done and now we're home, even though we never left the house. Yeah. So we were drinking more than we would have been previously. And my husband was training for the Cleveland Marathon and decided to try dry January in 2021. And I was supportive of that. And he did 30 days with no alcohol, and he was sleeping better and running better and just felt better. So he said, I'm going to see if I can keep that going. And flash forward to now, he's not drank since that point. Wow. Because he just felt so much better. But I was still drinking. I was in a wine club, and at the wine store I was at, there was non-alcoholic options. So I just started buying anything I could, just so I had something for him. Yeah. Because I didn't want to lose the ritual. I didn't want to lose that part of it. Alcohol is a very social thing. It's a big part of a lot of different celebrations or group things. And I didn't want him to feel left out or not part of that. So I was looking for alternatives for him to start. And then the Instagram algorithm figured that out, and they started pushing me ads for beautiful new products. Many of them are brand new in the last few years. I couldn't get them anywhere locally, but I just started ordering everything I could and trying things. And Some were great and some were not, but sharing those with friends. And so by the end of the year, this is 2021, again, I'm meeting with this career counselor. My big aha moment was this career counselor had said, okay, I challenge you, just come up with something. If you want to start your own business, come up with something small you could do. Not a big risk, just something you could do on the side. See if you even would like to do this being on your own. And then, so I was like, okay, before I meet with her next week, I got to come up with an idea. And then I read about shops in New York City that had opened up that were dedicated to selling all of these non-alcoholic products that I had been ordering. And it's the pandemic was getting bad again. I couldn't travel to New York, but I remember saying to my husband and my friend, I said, oh, I wish I could go to New York. I just want to talk to somebody about all these products we've been ordering, and they could make recommendations, and I could maybe test things and taste things. And so that was my aha moment of like, oh, well, if I wish we had that here, I've been doing all of this. Why don't I do that? Yeah. So that became the aha moment of, okay, I'm going to try this out and see if there's a market here in Cleveland for these new products that I'm so excited about. And so that started the journey of 2022, which was all about market research. I started by doing some focus groups at my house where I was serving drinks to people, letting them taste them, get as much feedback as I could. And then I started doing pop-ups at different makers markets. The Van Aken district had a cart that I could rent for $100 a day, and then I could sell my products on there. Or I was partnering with other local small businesses. They'd say, we're having this special event and you can come in and have a table and serve your drinks and sell your drinks. So I basically spent all of 2022 doing that. And ultimately what I decided after talking to many, many different people, what I found out is there's actually a huge market of people that don't drink. But because of the stigma and the social pressures around that, that's not something people talk about that much. So one, they were very happy to meet somebody that was saying, oh, I want to hear about it. Tell me about it. And two, they were really happy that someone was actually focused on them, because they're sort of this afterthought and no one's really focused on serving people who don't drink something that's beautiful and adult tasting and complex and not just, a soda. Yeah. And the other thing I learned from doing all of that was that people needed to taste these new products in order to be interested in them. Basically, all of that culminated in January of the beginning of this year. I was introduced to Amber Pompey from Cleveland Tea Revival, and she was looking to take her business, which was this thriving tea cafe in Hingetown. She was looking to take the physical aspect and pass that on to a partner that could continue to sell her teas and serve her teas, but she wanted to just take her business online and just have retail and wholesale tea sales. And that was sort of the perfect partnership for me. I don't have any food service background, but I did learn that people needed to taste these products. So I wanted to be able to serve drinks in a space. So we had developed a partnership in February, and then by March, I left KeyBank and have been full steam ahead, and we had our grand opening on July 7th. So we've moved really quickly.
You did. And so, I have so many questions. You were sort of going through the story, and I didn't want to cut you off, but I'm going to try and remember a couple of things. So for those seven of our listeners who actually bother to listen.
That's my lucky number, so I hope it's 7.
Okay, it's at least 7. And so sometimes it's 120, I'm told. And for those who are interested or have always thought about going on their own, right? It's a leap, right? It's a leap of many things. It puts it's a stressful leap from a financial perspective, risk management, family. So again, as far as you care to share. And as a venture capital guy, I'm interested in the how do you fund this? How do you run your pro forma? I know you're an accounting person. You probably have it down to a T. But not everyone has the fortitude, the actual courage to take an idea and translate it into reality. Walk us through the I'm almost tempted to call it the psychological process, right? What does that entail? Because, coming out doing Big Four public accounting, like it or not, you get your paycheck, and then you go into a financial services bank. Again, it's security. It's this isn't right. And so, career counselor or not, at the end of the day, you make a decision, and you carry it out. So share some of that with anyone who might be thinking about doing the same thing.
Sure. And for me, I don't think any of this would have happened without the pandemic, which for me just put very clearly into perspective how valuable our time is. And I did a lot of, again, self-reflection. I'd done a lot of self-reflection during the MBA program. Then it was sort of kids and autopilot of life. And now I was kind of having another opportunity for that self-reflection. And I honestly spent a lot of time in just meditation and listening to my own inner voice and just thinking about my time on this earth is short and valuable, and how do I want to be spending it? And the answer that came back very clearly was not in this corporate job. And so it kind of got to a point where, yes, it was a very big risk, and it's still a big risk for my family. Luckily my husband, he has a good job. He works for the Cleveland Metro Parks. So we do have, that stability there and backup, but we did take on a big risk. But I also, I sort of felt like I didn't have a choice. Like I couldn't keep doing what I was doing and be happy, and I needed to do something for myself. So the decision to do it and to move forward was actually pretty easy for me. But the decision is one thing, and then paying for it is another.
Yes.
So yeah, that piece of it, it is, piecing it together, bootstrapped, whatever I can,
Did you go through the traditional trajectory of bootstrapping, friends and family?
I've tried, yes. I've definitely pulled from savings, and I took out an SBA loan with KeyBank, and I'm trying to do as much of it on my own as I can. And I'm betting big on that there was going to be a reward at the end of this, and a week in, and it's looking like it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think some of that, going back to what you initially said about, financial statements and accounting background, is like, I do feel like I have developed a gut sense of what will work and what will not. And something that I've done, we have a small space. It's right at the corner of West 29th and Church Street, which is like the heart of Hingetown. We're right on the corner. You can't miss us. But it's not a big space. I think it's like 600 square feet.
Yeah.
And I am trying to squeeze out every penny I can out of every inch of that space. So you walk in, we've got a big retail wall. So we're always doing retail. We haven't said it's not live yet, but we're working on the website. We'll be selling all the products online as well. And then we're open from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. During the day, we're a coffee, tea shop, cafe. In the evening, we transition to the dry bar. We've got food then. We've got gelato. We've got tasting events. Yeah. We're going to be doing a lot of community events. So we're just doing everything we can to have the space being used all day, every day, and be this really welcoming, celebratory, beautiful place for people to come. And what we're hoping to do is really develop a community around the space. But from a bottom line perspective, I am trying to maximize every inch of that space.
Yeah, I believe it. And I have no doubt about your capabilities and talents of maxing out your investment. But you started a business. And so did you write a strategic plan? Did you go, what was the process?
Yeah, I had every intention of being much more purposeful, and like all the things I know I should have done, like even a business plan. I don't actually have one, if you can believe it. And my accounting is under my normal expectations because it's just been like drinking from a fire hose. So right now it's just been about getting open, hiring a great team, getting our name out there as much as we can. And then I feel like I've got a lot of, now that we're open, I can do some more of this cleanup. We're working on our employee handbook and our mission statement, and just making sure we've got all of our ducks in a row. Yeah. Unfortunately there's a lot more cleanup than I thought I would be, so proactive and so everything lined up before I did it.
You basically flipped the model is what you're telling me.
We just had to go and do it. And this opportunity was too good to partner with Cleveland Tea Revival. And so when that we had the opportunity to move on that, I just went, and now we're getting organized and figuring out.
Yeah, I'm sure your MBA faculty will be very disappointed to hear that you took so much yet used so little. But it sounds like you're backfilling that.
Don't worry that the shame is in the back of my head of like, oh, I should have done that. I just truly did not have time.
Well, I think I'm being an entrepreneur myself and investing in entrepreneurs for decades. I'm a big fan of speed over perfection, and so. Absolutely. I think perfection is a disease. It once you stick to that's what it needs to be, you never get anything done. And so, I applaud you for the entrepreneurial spirit and sort of the journey that you went through. I want to obviously, as someone who runs an MBA program, maybe I'll add a little half of a hot take about an MBA. Yeah. When people talk about higher education in general, business higher education, and particularly about MBAs, the assumption is that all MBAs are equal anywhere around the country or maybe even the world. And I always have to stop them and say, that's not how it works, right? If you're on the coasts and you're in one of the top 10 ranked MBA programs, that's great. But telling me that the state of the MBA is what Stanford is doing or what NYU is doing or what Harvard is doing is like saying, I always equate it to, it's like saying that the automobile market is a reflection of Rolls-Royce. Mm-hmm. Whatever Rolls-Royce does, that's the MBA, that's the automobile market. It just doesn't work that way. And so an MBA in the Midwest is quite different from other places. And just saying an MBA, it won't go, doesn't really do it justice in terms of the conversation. And then you mentioned, and I want you to talk about that as well, if that works, is you wanted to stay in the Midwest, you wanted to stay in Cleveland, you were looking for a brand that would provide you with what you need, but also would have the recognition by others, and you were looking to do it, being an accounting person, you were looking to do it at maximum value for money, right? Yes. And so that was the combination, and then you had a nice experience. So tell people who are, and at the end of the day, I'm the dean of the business school, I'm trying to get the word out that an MBA is a good investment, right? And so tell me, about that. Tell me about that process, how that played in, even though eventually you did it, you flipped it. But I also think that that's part of the MBA, right? If you learn what you need to learn and then you execute it the way you want to execute it, that's good. That's what we want you to do. We don't want you to be in some sort of formula because that just doesn't work that way, especially not for entrepreneurs. So tell me a little bit more about, maybe a little bit deeper about the MBA specifically. Obviously, it's Boler, but how that sort of all came around.
Yeah, I think in the MBA program, we were put in our cohort was put in so many of our classes in challenging positions where we were challenged with a project for a local company or challenged to put on an event where it was so much about speed and action and figuring out how to work together and get something done, and less about it being perfectly in Excel or perfectly in a PowerPoint presentation that we could show you at the end. We'd get there at the end of it, but it was always much more, it was just a messier process. And that to me is what I've been able to bring into entrepreneurship, is like, it's okay for this to be a messy process because there is no clear path. You do A, B, C, D. It's you have to do 50 different things all at different times, manage all of that and get it together by the end. And there'll be some things you have to clean up at the end. But that was my whole experience in the MBA. The MBA program did a really good job of just throwing us into those situations in group projects all the time that were uncomfortable. But that's, for me, I'm an experiential learner. So that I really took so much away from that. And opening this business, which is a cafe and a dry bar, it's food service. I have no food service industry. So as I was hiring this team, I kept telling them, I need you to have food service experience. I don't have any of that. But what I do bring to this is I have a lot of years of leadership and management of people, and I know how to do that piece of it. And so everything that I learned in my MBA and from my time at Key, those are the leadership gifts that I'm able to immediately bring to this team and build a long-standing, long-term team right off the bat. I've already, had to put some of those skills to use. It's just, it happens really, really quickly.
In the first week?
Yes.
All right, so I want to hear about that, but you mentioned something that I'm curious about. I have my own views about it. You mentioned a cohort.
Yeah.
And you mentioned group work.
Yeah.
And so I want you to talk a little bit about the experience of a cohort and what that does for an MBA, and then I'll ask a follow-up question about group work.
Okay. Well, remember, I was doing my MBA 10 years ago.
Yep.
I really liked being a cohort. I think our cohort started we had about 20, I think it stayed around 20 people. And so staying together throughout the core classes of the program, I mean, we really learned each other. And we ended up forming groups within the cohort that we would always keep working together. And, it did become very realistic in terms of like, I had this small team of people. We always worked on our projects together over the years. We each knew kind of our roles, who was good at what. And so it just made those uncomfortable group projects. By the end, we were like a well-running machine, and we could really do things well. And we knew what complemented different people. So for me personally, I think the cohort was great, and I still keep in touch with many of the people that were in my cohort. We love when we get to see each other now because all of our lives have changed quite a bit. And then the group projects, again, I feel like no one likes a group project.
Exactly.
But it is the most realistic thing you can do in school. That is what it's like to be in the working world.
Yeah.
When I was at Key, leading teams and managing projects, every project was a group project, and you couldn't get anything done.
necessarily select the people on your team. You had to, and so that's why I wanted to ask you, because I'm a business school dean, but I've been a professor for a lot longer, and I still teach. I enjoy teaching very much, and in the MBA marketing strategy course, which I like to teach, I assign group projects, a semester-long project, by modules, whatever it is. And certainly not always do people fall in a group that they're happy about. And then I get the complaints. So-and-so isn't doing this. And my response is, if you were at work, would you, you just need to get it done.
You need to learn to influence people when it's not
And I would actually say that's part of the learning experience.
Exactly. It's definitely part of it.
And so I appreciate you telling me that, because students complain about it all the time.
I know.
And I will
I was one of
absolutely
those
not
students.
relent. Exactly. I will absolutely not relent. And so I appreciate your candid description of that. And I also think, again, speaking of an MBA that's not necessarily in a one of the coasts or big markets, the cohort matters. As you say, you're still in touch with many. And I think when people think about an MBA program, they think about obviously the academic content, the rankings, the brand, whatever it is. They also should be thinking about the networking opportunities, especially in markets where they see themselves staying in. From John Carroll perspective, from Boler, a lot of our alumni stick around, and so that matters, right? You ended up at Boler because your supervisor got their MBA there, right? And that is a part of the way I see it, the strength of a program. And so I appreciate your insight on that. We have a couple more minutes. I got the high sign. I always think that when Ashley does this, she's ordering a chopper, but no choppers have ever arrived. So one last question, and you just started a week ago, right?
July 7th, we opened.
July 7th, so 10 days. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's kind of weird to be asking where you see yourself 5 years from now, but I also think it's you got to have a vision, right? I'm sure you have a vision. So tell me how you see this going. Yeah,
I have a few ideas. One I mentioned, we got to get our website up and running because I want to do e-commerce. The second would be another location, whether that's in Cleveland or in a different city. These sort of non-alcoholic retail shops or dry bars are popping up all over the country.
Okay.
But there's still a lot of really big markets. I think, as far as I know, Columbus is one of them where I think it would do really well. And so I keep saying, if I can get my feet under me and in 6 months or a year, if no one's done this in Columbus, I think this would absolutely work there. So I would be looking for expansion to that. And then,
do you think this is franchisable?
I don't know that it's franchisable. But I do think there's opportunity to grow it. I don't know how big I would want to get. And there's other businesses on the coast that are, a few years ahead of me that are probably more likely to franchise.
Yeah.
What I do like about our current spot is that it feels really deeply rooted in this great community of Hingetown, where I'm supported by other small business owners. And I love that community feeling, and I want to be building a community there. So I don't want to be growing too fast that I don't feel like it's part of and becoming, embedded within the community that it's in.
Yeah. Another location would present a whole new challenge for you, because you can't be in more than one location at a time, right? And so are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about how that's going to be, or is it too soon, 10 days in?
Yeah, I think it's probably too soon. I'm an East Sider, so born and bred on the east side of Cleveland, and everyone knows in Cleveland there's East Side, West Side. Now that I'm on the West Side, which I chose the West Side for a reason. I think I honestly lucked out and got the best location in Cleveland. But the East Side part of me is like, oh, I wish I had something on the East Side too. So
I wish you had something on the East Side.
Yeah, so I don't know how quickly I'll be able to do all that, but I'm definitely a dreamer and a doer, and I won't sit still for very long. So.
Yeah, I get a sense. So we're going to wrap up now, and I always ask my guests the same question. It always puts them at complete unease. So I apologize.
That's okay.
But if you had a thought that you could leave us with, going through this experience, a really unique set of experiences, and an output that it shows that you're happy, and so that matters. What would that be? What would you tell folks, all 7 or at least 7 of people that are listening or watching us?
I think I'd say the same thing that I said this when I was at Key. I would say it about the MBA program, and I would say it about my new shop Verbena now, which is that I really believe everybody has their own strengths and gifts that they've been given. And I think everyone needs to do their own self-exploration and figure out what are your unique gifts. And I think it's easy to think other people have those, but they don't. Whatever is easy for you, what comes naturally to you, what you enjoy doing, that's your strength. And I think everyone should just focus on bringing as much of that into their life as they can, because I think it's easy to look at other people, see how they do things, compare yourself, think I should be on this path or I should be doing X, Y, Z. But I think the best way to find happiness and value in whatever you're doing is following your own personal strengths and seeing where they take you.
That's outstanding. So first, I want to wish you a lot of success with Verbena Free Spirited. You want to give us another plug to where it is and what times you're open? Go ahead.
Yes, please. We're at 1434 West 29th Street. So it's right at the corner of West 29th and Church Street, right in the heart of Hingetown. We're open Wednesday through Sunday from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. I don't know when this is coming out, but we've got City Stages coming up in July, which is the Cleveland Museum of Art puts on a concert on 2 Wednesdays in July. So that's a great opportunity to come check us out. And then the best way to keep up with what we're doing is on our Instagram, which is Verbena Free Spirited. And we have lots of tasting and events and a book club and all kinds of things planned in the near future.
Sure to put the Instagram link on our show notes.
Okay, great.
And anything else? What's the website address going to be? Do you already know?
VerbenaFreeSpirited.com.
Of course.
Yes.
We'll make sure to put that as well.
Please visit.
And so, listening to your story today, I have to tell you, it's very inspiring. It's very impressive. And getting to know you a little bit, I'm not surprised at all that you've accomplished what you accomplished.
Thank you.
It's a very thoughtful process that you went through, not some sort of knee-jerk. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Sometimes, it works great. But it's wonderful to see how accomplished you are at this stage in your life, professionally, personally. I feel personal pride at being involved with the institution that provided you with the skills to get you to where you are. And I want to thank you very much for being here. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
My pleasure.
Hey, so thanks for joining us for The Bottom Line with the Business Dean. If you liked what you saw and you liked what you heard, please leave us a rating and a review. And be sure to check out the Boler College of Business on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for more of what's happening with the Business Dean. That's me. And we'll see you next time.